Let me take you back to a moment you cannot remember, but that changed everything. There was a time, perhaps in your first weeks of breathing this air, when you didn't know where your mother's warmth ended and your skin began. You were the room, the light filtering through curtains, the sound of distant traffic blending seamlessly with heartbeat rhythms. Then something happened. Something so gradual and thorough that most people never notice the theft occurring. They began to name you, to define you, to carve boundaries around something that had never been separate from the flowing river of existence itself. This is what I call the Great Theft, and it happened to every single one of us. You see, from the moment we enter language, we enter limitation. The word I becomes a trap disguised as identity, a conceptual prison cell that feels like home because we've lived in it so long. I've watched this happen across generations, across cultures, across every human gathering I've witnessed. The baby who once gazed at hands as if they were mysterious foreign objects gradually learns that those hands are mine, that there is an owner and owned, a subject observing objects. But here's what they never tell you in school. What gets lost in the machinery of socialization. That division is imaginary. You are not an awareness trapped behind eyeballs, peering out at a separate world. You are the entire event of experiencing itself, an aperture through which the universe knows its own face. Think about it for a moment. Where exactly does the boundary exist between you and the air filling your lungs right now? Is oxygen outside until it crosses some imaginary line, then suddenly becomes you? People walk around believing they are isolated entities, separate from the trees exhaling what they inhale, separate from the sunlight that once exploded from a star and now powers every thought, every movement. The separation is conceptual, linguistic, useful for certain functions, but utterly false when taken as reality. We are ongoing transactions with everything, continuous exchanges that have no clear beginning or ending point. The skin is not a wall but a conversation, a dynamic interface where inside and outside reveal themselves as arbitrary designations imposed on seamless flow. I remember standing in a forest once, watching a leaf fall from an oak tree, and suddenly understanding something that words can barely touch. That leaf was never separate from the tree, even as it fell. It was an expression of earth, water, sunlight, and time, all dancing together as leaf. When it touched the ground, did it stop being part of the tree? Or did the relationship simply change form? This is how you are with the universe. You didn't come into this world like a stranger arriving at a foreign hotel. You came out of it, the way a wave comes out of the ocean. Never separate even when it seems to have its own temporary form and direction. But we don't stop at creating false boundaries between self and world. Oh no, humans are far more creative in our suffering than that. We take this already problematic division and add another layer of torture. The good-bad judgment machine that runs constantly in our minds, evaluating every experience as either acceptable or intolerable. You wake up in the morning and immediately check, is this a good day or bad day? The weather is judged, the traffic is judged, the email from your boss is judged, the taste of coffee is judged. We're taught from earliest memory to divide life into pleasant and unpleasant, wanted and unwanted, as if reality cares about our preferences. Watch yourself for just 1 hour today. See how automatically the labeling happens. A sound occurs. Is it good or bad? A sensation arises in your body, pleasant or unpleasant. Someone says something, agreeable or disagreeable. This constant evaluation creates a kind of civil war within your own experience, a rejection of half of life in favor of the other half. But life itself knows nothing of these divisions. Rain falls on the just and unjust alike, as the old saying goes. The universe includes everything, birth and death, pleasure and pain, gain and loss, in one continuous movement. Yet here we are, tiny human beings, declaring war on half of existence, trying to have only the peaks without the valleys, only the in-breath without the out-breath. They say that Buddha once pointed to the root of suffering with elegant simplicity. It's the wanting things to be different than they are. Not the pain itself, but the resistance to pain. Not the loss itself, but the refusal to let go. I've seen people torture themselves for years, decades even, fighting against realities that cannot be changed. Aging bodies, changing circumstances, the fundamental uncertainty of being alive. We resist the natural cycles like someone trying to stop the tide with their bare hands, exhausting ourselves in a battle we can never win. And ironically, this resistance, this constant no to half of what is, causes far more suffering than the original experience we were resisting. But perhaps the cruelest theft of all, the one that happens every single day, is how we miss the only moment where life actually exists. You're doing it right now, even as you hear these words. Part of your mind is already jumping ahead, wondering where this is going, what will be said next, how long this will take, or perhaps you're comparing this to something you heard before, to some other teaching, some other moment. The past and future feel so real, don't they? They occupy so much of our mental space that we barely notice the present moment slipping by unattended, like an ignored child tugging at our sleeve. Here's something I discovered that changed everything. The past exists only as memory, and memory is happening now. The future exists only as imagination, and imagination is happening now. Every moment of worry about tomorrow is occurring in this moment. Every instance of regret about yesterday is occurring in this moment. The present moment is all there is, all there has ever been, all there will ever be. Yet we've been robbed of it, conditioned to live almost entirely in mental time, in the psychological narrative of past and future, missing the actual living experience happening right here. I know what you're thinking, but I need to plan for the future. I need to learn from the past. Of course you do. Functional time has its place. When you plan dinner or catch a plane, you're using time appropriately as a tool. But watch how often time uses you instead. How often do you find yourself lost in repetitive thoughts about past conversations that cannot be changed, or future scenarios that may never happen? The mind becomes a time machine stuck on repeat, playing the same stories, fears and desires in an endless loop, while the miracle of now, the only place where you're actually alive, goes completely unnoticed. Let me tell you something that sounds absurd until you really feel into it. You are not in the universe. You are an activity of the universe itself, a focalization of consciousness through which the cosmos knows itself. Think about the atoms in your body. Every single one was forged in the heart of an ancient star that lived and died before our sun was born. You are literally made of stardust, not as poetry, but as scientific fact. The calcium in your bones, the iron in your blood, the oxygen you breathe, all of it was created in stellar furnaces billions of years ago. You are not an observer of the universe. You are the universe observing itself from this particular vantage point. When you look up at the night sky, people say, "Look at all those stars out there." But it would be more accurate to say, the stars are looking at themselves through your eyes. Consciousness is not a byproduct of matter, but the very ground of being itself, expressing through infinite forms. You are that expression, that activity, that dance of existence, taking temporary shape as you. This isn't mystical nonsense. It's direct observation when you stop identifying exclusively with the conceptual self and recognize the aware presence that's been here all along, watching thoughts come and go, watching sensations arise and pass, unchanging while everything changes. And this brings us to something truly remarkable. The intelligence operating through you right now that has nothing to do with your thinking mind. Your body is breathing without your permission, digesting food without your instructions, healing cuts without your supervision, fighting off countless pathogens without your awareness. Right now, as you sit here, your heart is beating, your pupils are adjusting to light, your neurons are firing in patterns of unfathomable complexity, all without any conscious control from you. Who is doing all this? What intelligence is running this extraordinary show? People believe they are their thoughts, their thinking mind, the voice in the head narrating everything. But that's just one tiny aspect of the vast intelligence operating through your form. I've watched yogis demonstrate control over supposedly involuntary functions, seen healers tap into wisdom beyond conceptual knowledge, witnessed mothers intuitively know something's wrong with their child from miles away. There's an intelligence far deeper and more profound than rational thought. An intelligence that knows how to turn an embryo into a baby, how to make a heartbeat for 80 years without stopping, how to coordinate trillions of cells into a functioning human being. You are that intelligence, expressing itself in this particular way, at this particular time. The thinking mind is useful. Don't misunderstand me. It can solve problems, create tools, write symphonies. But we've made the catastrophic error of believing it's all we are, of identifying our entire being with this one narrow function. It's like believing you are your left hand and ignoring the rest of your body. The intelligence moving through you is cosmic in scope, ancient beyond measure, and it operates with a wisdom that the thinking mind cannot touch. When you relax into this recognition, when you stop trying to control and manipulate everything with thought alone, you begin to access a deeper knowing, an intuition, a flow that people spend their lives searching for. But here's where we humans really distinguish ourselves from the rest of nature. We resist. Birds don't resist being birds. Rivers don't resist flowing. Trees don't resist autumn. But humans, we fight against everything. We resist aging, though every creature that lives eventually grows old. We resist uncertainty, though the future has always been unknown. We resist change, though everything that exists is constantly changing. We resist death, though it's been the fate of every living being that ever existed. This resistance, this constant no to the fundamental conditions of existence, creates a kind of existential exhaustion that permeates modern human life. You can see it everywhere. The multi-billion-dollar anti-aging industry promising to stop the unstoppable. The endless pursuit of security in an inherently uncertain universe. The desperate clinging to relationships, possessions, identities that are all temporary by nature. People genuinely believe that if they just worry enough, plan enough, control enough, they can somehow exempt themselves from the basic facts of being alive. That everything changes, nothing lasts, and uncertainty is the only certainty. But this is like trying to swim against a current that always wins. The resistance itself creates the suffering, far more than the changes we're resisting. I'm not talking about resignation or passivity. There's a difference between acceptance and giving up. Acceptance is intelligence. It's seeing what is and working with reality rather than against it. If you're caught in a riptide, fighting it exhausts you and pulls you under. Accepting it, swimming parallel to shore, gets you out safely. This is what I mean by flowing with life rather than resisting it. You can still take action, still make choices, still have preferences, but underneath it all is a fundamental yes to what is, a recognition that reality doesn't require your approval to exist, and that your resistance only adds suffering to situations that may already be challenging enough. Now pause with me for a moment, because we're about to go deeper into something that might sound strange, but is actually the most natural thing in the world. I want you to do something for me, not because I need engagement metrics, though if this resonates with you, I genuinely appreciate you subscribing to this channel so we can continue these conversations. But because what I'm about to ask might shift something in your direct experience. Right now, as you're listening, Notice the awareness that knows you're listening. Not the content of thoughts, not the words themselves, but the awareness in which everything is happening. Can you find where that awareness began? Can you locate where it will end? Write in the comments what you notice when you look for the one who's looking. Not a metaphor, not a concept, but your actual direct experience in this moment. What do you find? That awareness you just touched, or tried to touch, or couldn't quite grasp. That's your original face. That's what you were before your parents met, what you'll be after this body returns to dust, what you are right now beneath all the changing thoughts, emotions, stories, and identities. People talk about finding themselves, discovering who they really are, as if there's some hidden truth buried under layers of conditioning. But the truth is simpler and more obvious. You are the aware space in which everything appears and disappears. Thoughts come and go, but you remain. Emotions rise and fall, but you remain. The body ages, changes, will eventually die. But this witnessing awareness, this capacity to know experience, has been present since you were a child and is unmarked by everything that's happened to you. I remember looking at childhood photos once and having a strange realization. The person in those pictures looks nothing like me now. Different body, different thoughts, different personality even. Everything has changed. But something hasn't changed. The awareness that was looking through those young eyes is the same awareness looking through these eyes now. It's untouched by time, by experience, by the entire drama of a life lived. This is your true nature, not the story of me with its history and future, its achievements and failures, its hopes and fears. Those are all objects appearing in awareness, changing costumes in an eternal theater where you are the unchanging screen on which all movies are projected. Most spiritual teachings make a fundamental error. They present awakening as something you need to achieve, a destination you need to reach, a future state you need to attain through years of practice and discipline. They give you 1,000 techniques, endless practices, complex philosophies to study and integrate. But here's the beautiful, frustrating, obvious secret. You are already what you're seeking. The search itself is what takes you away from recognizing what's already present. It's like a fish searching for water, a person looking everywhere for their glasses while wearing them the whole time. This is what I call the pathless path, the journey without distance, the arrival that never left. You don't need to become awakened. You need to recognize that awareness, pure, simple, obvious awareness, is what you are and have always been. Every practice, every technique, every teaching points to this recognition. But the pointer is not the moon. You can spend your whole life perfecting meditation techniques, studying sacred texts, following teachers, accumulating spiritual experiences, and still miss the simple fact that none of it is necessary. The awareness that knows you're meditating is already what you're trying to reach through meditation. The consciousness that reads sacred texts is already the truth those texts point toward. Does this mean practice has no value? Not at all. Practices can help quiet the mind, train attention, create space for recognition to occur, but they don't create what's already present. They're more like removing dust from a mirror than building the mirror itself. The mirror, pure awareness, consciousness, your true nature, is already here, already functioning, already what you are. It doesn't need improvement or achievement. It needs recognition, that's all. A simple turning of attention from the objects appearing in awareness to awareness itself, from the contents of consciousness to consciousness as such. And this brings us to perhaps the most playful, most paradoxical understanding of all. Consciousness was never asleep. You were never lost. The whole thing is an elaborate game of hide and seek that consciousness plays with itself. Think about how you play hide and seek with a child. You hide, but not too well. You make sounds, give clues, want to be found. And when the child discovers you, there's that explosion of joy, that delight in the finding. Consciousness does the same thing with itself. It hides so completely, so thoroughly, that it genuinely forgets it's playing a game. It identifies with the limited form, believes the story of separation, experiences the suffering of seeming to be a separate self. But all along, there's a part that knows. There's a whisper in the depths that says, "This isn't quite right. There's something more." That whisper is consciousness calling to itself, leaving breadcrumbs back to recognition. Every spiritual longing, every moment of questioning, every glimpse of something beyond the ordinary, these are consciousness playing both sides of hide and seek, the hider and the seeker, the lost and the finder. And awakening, enlightenment, liberation, whatever you want to call it, is simply the moment when consciousness recognizes itself, when the seeker realizes they are what they've been seeking, when the lost one discovers they were never lost at all. They experience themselves temporarily as you, as this particular person with this particular history in this particular time and place. But that temporary experience is not a mistake or a problem to be solved. It's an expression of infinite creativity, a unique perspective through which the totality knows itself. You are not consciousness trapped in a body, desperately trying to escape back to source. You are consciousness choosing to experience limitation, choosing to forget what it is so it can have the joy of remembering, choosing to be human with all the vulnerability, beauty, pain, and wonder that entails. So what does this mean for how you live? Does it mean nothing matters? That you should sit in a cave and contemplate your navel? Absolutely not. It means everything matters, because everything is an expression of what you truly are. The difference is, the added suffering falls away. The resistance, the constant seeking, the belief that something is fundamentally wrong that needs to be fixed. Life continues with its ups and downs, challenges and joys, births and deaths. But there's a lightness, a humor, a deep okayness underneath it all. You stop taking the story of me quite so seriously. Stop fighting reality quite so much. Stop believing that your thoughts about yourself are what you actually are. You begin to live from presence, rather than from the mental narrative of past and future. You make choices, take actions, engage with life fully, but without the heaviness of believing your separate self is doing it all. There's spontaneity, naturalness, a flow that comes from recognizing you're not separate from the river of existence, but an inseparable part of it. And in that recognition, something remarkable happens. The ordinary becomes extraordinary. The simple act of breathing becomes profound. The play of light on water becomes miraculous. The existence of existence itself becomes the greatest mystery and the most obvious fact simultaneously. I've shared a lot with you today, taken you on a journey through concepts and pointers that are really meant to dissolve concepts and pointers. Before we close, I want to ask something of you, and I want to be genuine about it because I think we're past the point of pretending engagement metrics don't matter when they actually do help these conversations reach more people who might benefit from them. If what we've explored together today touched something in you, revealed something, or even just made you curious, I would genuinely appreciate you subscribing to this channel. Not out of obligation, but because it helps create a community of people interested in these questions, this exploration, this remembering of what we've never actually lost. But more than that, I want to hear from you. What opened up for you as you listened? What questions arose? What recognition, if any, occurred? Share your experience in the comments, not for me, but for the community we're building together. Sometimes someone will write something in the comments that creates an insight for dozens of other people. Sometimes a question someone asks opens doors for everyone. We're all in this together, all consciousness exploring itself through different forms, and your voice, your perspective, your experience matters. What did you learn? How did this land with you? What's still unclear? Let's continue this conversation because it never really ends. It just deepens, unfolds, reveals more of what was always here, waiting to be recognized. Welcome home.